Welcome to today's Explainer. I am so glad you're here with us. Today, we're diving into something incredibly personal and, honestly, super misunderstood. We're talking about the psychology of people who avoid confrontation. We'll be looking at the neuroscience behind our reactions, where this stems from in our childhoods, and most importantly, a real gentle guide to healing. So settle in, take a deep breath, and let's unravel this whole thing together.
I want you to picture this. You're sitting in a meeting, or maybe just around the dinner table, and someone says something that completely crosses a line. Maybe it's a coworker brushing off your hard work, or a friend dropping a joke that just stings. Before your brain even has a second to process what just happened, your body takes over. Your chest gets tight, your heart starts racing, and right there, you feel it. That unmistakable heavy lump forming in your throat, literally blocking your words from getting out.
Deep down in your mind, there's this screaming thought. Say something, defend yourself. But what do you actually do? You force this tight, polite little smile. You nod, you say, "Oh, it's fine," and act like everything is perfectly normal. And the moment passes. But you know the real reaction? That happens hours later. You're driving home alone, gripping the steering wheel, replaying that exact conversation on an endless loop, just drowning in the shame of your own silence. And then, out of nowhere, the absolute perfect, calm, assertive response hits you. But by then, it's way too late.
Which brings us to Section 1, Survival, Not Weakness.
Okay, let's dive into this, because we really need to fundamentally change how we view that silence. If you've ever been caught in that awful loop of beating yourself up, we need to ditch that shame right now. Avoiding conflict? It doesn't mean you lack confidence or self-respect. What you're actually going through is an automatic survival response. Look at it this way. From the outside, you look like the most easygoing person in the world. You're agreeable, you're smoothing over the tension, avoiding drama like an absolute pro. But the inside reality? It's this messy, heavy mix of immediate relief and total self-betrayal settling right in your chest. Honestly, what looks like a desire for peace to the outside world is usually just anxiety wearing a mask. You didn't consciously choose to stay quiet. Your body literally chose the safety of being invisible over the perceived risk of speaking your truth.
So let's look at the science behind this in Section 2, the neuroscience of silence. We have to look at how this builds biologically, because the real reason your voice vanishes is actually hardwired into your brain. To get this, we need to talk about your brain's built-in alarm system, the amygdala. When things get tense in a conversation, your amygdala reacts at lightning speed. And here's the wild part. It literally cannot tell the difference between a physical threat, like a tiger in the room, and a social threat, like a really harsh comment. Neuroscience shows us that social rejection lights up the exact same neural pathways as physical pain. Your brain is essentially registering an awkward argument as a literal threat to your physical survival.
We've all heard of fight or flight, right? But trauma researchers have pinpointed another massive instinct that kicks in, specifically for chronic conflict avoiders. It's called the fawn response. Instead of fighting back or running away, your nervous system tries to neutralize the danger by becoming incredibly agreeable and accommodating. Cortisol floods your system, but instead of throwing a punch, your biology is actively telling you to blend in. It's screaming at you to soothe the other person and just stay likable so you don't get hurt.
So the crucial point is how this actually plays out in real life. It looks exactly like these behaviors right here. You catch yourself apologizing when you literally did nothing wrong. Or you start carrying the heavy emotional baggage of everyone else in the room, emotions that were never yours to deal with in the first place. You shrink down, you become less visible. And you do this not because your thoughts don't matter, but because your biology is totally convinced that invisibility equals survival. Seriously, I can't stress this enough. This is biology doing its thing, not a lack of self-respect.
And that brings us to Section 3, Roots in Childhood. So where does this programming even come from? I mean, we aren't born terrified of our own voices. Think about toddlers. They will scream and protest without a single ounce of shame. If your voice faded away over time, it's because something very early on taught you that using it was dangerous. For a lot of people, this traces back to one of two kinds of environments. The first is a volatile childhood home. Here, a tiny disagreement didn't just stay a disagreement. It blew up into yelling, slam doors, just pure chaos. Your developing brain quickly did the math and learned a terrifying rule. Conflict equals absolute danger. On the flip side, maybe your home seemed totally calm, but it was deeply emotionally dismissive. If you were sad or frustrated, you were met with a cold shoulder. You were told you were too sensitive. Or you only got love and praise when you were being a good, easy kid. You absorbed this quiet, really devastating lesson that having messy emotions made you unlovable.
Growing up in these kinds of environments often leads to an anxious or fearful attachment style. You basically learn to heavily adapt to whoever is around you, just to preserve that connection at any cost. You didn't stay quiet because you didn't have boundaries. You stayed quiet because, once upon a time, keeping everybody else comfortable and just swallowing your own feelings was literally the only way you could stay connected and secure.
But here's where things get better. Let's move to Section 4, your guide to healing. The absolute best news here is that what's been learned can actually be unlearned. You don't have to live in the shadow of the fawn response forever. But to get there, we really have to acknowledge the physical toll this takes. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it shows how the conflict doesn't just poof and disappear. It relocates. It moves right into your physical body. Every single time you bite your tongue or say yes when you are desperately screaming no inside, you're basically making a deposit into a resentment bank account. And over time, that massive backlog of unresolved tension manifests physically. We're talking chronic fatigue, killer headaches, digestive issues, and ultimately, just a profound loss of your own identity. The cost of silence is just way too high.
So how do we fix it? Well, you definitely can't just flip a switch and suddenly become this ultra-aggressive person. That's just going to send your nervous system into overdrive. Instead, you heal by slowly, gently teaching your body that disagreement isn't a life-or-death threat anymore. Because that fawn response happens so fast and is so automatic, your goal right now is not to have the perfect comeback in the moment. Step 1 is literally just buying yourself some time. Try slowing everything down with phrases like, let me think about that and get back to you. Honestly, just creating that tiny pause is a massive victory. Then, step 2 is practicing gentle exposure through what we call micro-confrontations. Send back a coffee order if they got it wrong. Say no to a really tiny low-stakes request. You're basically giving your body the chance to learn that you can speak up and still be completely safe. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. When you start doing this, your heart is going to race. You're going to feel a really heavy wave of guilt. But I need you to remember this core truth. Guilt is not proof that you are doing something wrong. That super uncomfortable feeling, that's just the residue of an old survival pattern breaking apart. It means you're growing. It means you are changing the programming.
Because underneath all that conflict avoidance is this terrifying, deep-seated belief that if you actually speak up, you're the villain. And this brilliantly illustrates why that's just not true. Boundaries are not walls built for punishment. They are doors that teach people how to safely stay in relationship with you. Using your voice doesn't mean you're being loud or aggressive. It just means you're trusting that you can tolerate a disagreement without having to completely disappear.
Here's the thing. Healthy conflict doesn't destroy a connection. It actually defines it. It makes it real. If this explainer just put words to a silent battle you've been fighting your entire life, please know you are so not alone here. So let me ask you, what is one small boundary you have really struggled to set in your life? Acknowledge it and figure out how a tiny micro-confrontation might help you tackle it. Finding your voice is a gentle, ongoing journey. But it really makes you wonder, what other hidden survival tactics is your brain running right now without you even realizing it? Thank you so much for hanging out with me today to explore the hidden psychology behind our everyday behaviors. See you next time.